Good morning and welcome to Grace Episcopal Church in Mansfield, Ohio. We are gathered here today with representatives of three congregations in Central Ohio: St. Matthew's, Ashland, St. Mark's, Shelby, and Grace Church, Mansfield. Morning prayer will be posted on YouTube, and we invite you to join us. A bulletin will also be posted with it so you can follow along and participate in the service. Thank you. Jesus said, "Whosoever will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me." Let us humbly confess our sins unto Almighty God. Almighty and merciful Father, we have erred and strayed from thy ways like lost sheep. We have followed too much the devices and desires of our own hearts. We have offended against thy holy laws. We have left undone those things which we ought to have done, and we have done those things which we ought not to have done. But thou, O Lord, have mercy upon us. Spare thou those who confess their faults. Restore thou those who are penitent, according to thy promises, declared unto mankind in Christ Jesus our Lord. And grant, O most merciful Father, for his sake, that we may hereafter live a godly, righteous, and sober life, to the glory of thy holy name. Amen. The Almighty and merciful Lord grant you absolution and remission of all your sins, true repentance, amendment of life, and the grace and consolation of his Holy Spirit. Amen. Please stand. O Lord, open thou our lips, and our mouth shall show forth thy praise. Glory to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and will be forever. Amen.
The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not be in want.
He makes me lie down in green pastures,
And leads me beside still waters. He revives my soul, and guides me along right pathways for his name's sake.
though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil.
For you are with me, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You spread a table before me in the presence of those who trouble me. You have anointed my head with oil, and my cup is running over.
Surely your goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life,
And I will dwell in the house
first reading is from Ephesians. Once you were darkness, but now in the Lord you are light. Live as children of light, for the fruit of the light is found in all that is good and right and true. Try to find out what is pleasing to the Lord. Take no part in the unfruitful works of darkness, but instead expose them. For it is shameful even to mention what such people do secretly. But everything exposed by the light becomes visible. For everything that becomes visible is light. Therefore it says, "Sleeper, awake, rise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you." The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Oh, be joyful in the Lord, all ye lands. Serve the Lord with gladness, and come before his presence with a song. Be sure that the Lord is God. It is he that hath made us, and not we ourselves. We are his people, and the sheep of his pasture. Oh, go your way into his gates with thanksgiving, and into his courts with praise. Be thankful unto him, and speak good of his name. For the Lord is gracious, his mercy is everlasting, and his truth endureth from generation to generation. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Ghost, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen.
The gospel reading this morning is taken from the 9th chapter of the book of John. As Jesus walked along, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him, "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" Jesus answered, "Neither this man nor his parents sinned. He was born blind so that God's works might be revealed in him. We must work the works of him who sent me while it is day. Night is coming when no one can work. As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world." When he had said this, he spat on the ground and made mud with the saliva and spread the mud on the man's eyes, saying to him, "Go, wash in the pool of Siloam," which means sent. Then he went and washed and came back able to see. The neighbors and those who had seen him before as a beggar began to ask, "Is this not the man who used to sit and beg?" Some were saying, "It is he." Others were saying, "No, but it is someone like him." He kept saying, "I am the man," but they kept asking him, "Then how were your eyes opened?" He answered, "The man called Jesus made mud, spread it on my eyes, and said to me, 'Go to Siloam and wash.' And then I went and washed and received my sight." They said to him, "Where is he?" He said, "I do not know." They brought to the Pharisees the man who had formerly been blind. Now it was the Sabbath day when Jesus made the mud and opened his eyes. And then the Pharisees also began to ask him how he had received his sight. He said to them, "He put mud on my eyes, then I washed, and now I see." Some of the Pharisees said, "This man is not from God, for he does not observe the Sabbath." But the others said, "How can a man who is a sinner perform such signs?" And they were divided. So they said again to the blind man, "What do you say about him? It was your eyes he opened." He said, "He is a prophet." The Jews did not believe that he had been blind and had received his sight until they called the parents of the man who had received his sight and asked them, "Is this your son, who you say was born blind? How then does he now see?" His parents answered, "We know that this is our son, and that he was born blind, but we do not know how it is that now he sees. Nor do we know who opened his eyes. Ask him. He is of age. He will speak for himself." His parents said this because they were afraid of the Jews, for the Jews had already agreed that anyone who confessed Jesus to be the Messiah would be put out of the synagogue. Therefore his parents said, "He is of age, ask him." So for the second time they called the man who had been blind, and they said to him, "Give glory to God. We know that this man is a sinner." He answered, I do not know whether he is a sinner. One thing I do know, that though I was blind, now I see." They said to him, "What did he do to you? How did he open your eyes?" He answered them, "I have told you already, and you would not listen. Why do you want to hear it again? Do you also want to become his disciples?" Then they revile him, saying, "You are his disciple, but we are disciples of Moses. We know that God has spoken to Moses, but as for this man, we do not know where he comes from." The man answered, "Here is an astonishing thing. You do not know where he comes from, and yet he opened my eyes. We know that God does not listen to sinners, but he does listen to one who worships him and obeys his will. Never since the world began has it been heard that anyone opened the eyes of a person born blind. If this man were not from God, he could do nothing." They answered him, "You were born entirely in sin, and are you trying to teach us?" And they drove him out. Jesus heard that they had driven him out, and when he found him, he said, "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" He answered, "And who is he, sir? Tell me so that I may believe in him." Jesus said to him, "You have seen him, and the one speaking with you is he." He said, "Lord, I believe." And he worshipped him. Jesus said, "I came into this world for judgment, so that those who do not see may see, and those who do see may become blind." Some of the Pharisees near him heard this and said to him, "Surely we are not blind, are we?" Jesus said to them, "If you were blind, you would not have sinned. But now that you say, 'We see,' your sin remains." The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Jesus and his disciples were walking down a road. Jesus sees a blind man. The disciples asked, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Jesus answered, neither. He was born blind so that God's work may be revealed in him. So then Jesus spits on the ground, makes some saliva, rubs the mixture in the man's eyes, and says, go wash in the pool of Siloam. Then we all know what happens, right? The blind man goes to the pool and washes. And as John says, he came back able to see. Absolutely amazing. Quite honestly, this was never really one of my favorite healing stories. I didn't really ever like it. And it was even worse that it always came in Lent during the lectionary, and I thought it should be an ordinary time when nobody comes to church and you have all those other healing stories. However, this year, this week, I saw something different, something that kind of intrigued me. And I can now see why it comes in the middle of Lent. But let's back up for a moment and look at this Lenten season. Ash Wednesday, we heard from the prophet Joel. Blow the trumpet in Zion, sanctify a fast. Then we received ashes on our foreheads, the sign of our mortality, Jesus' immortality. Then the first Sunday of Lent, we entered with Jesus into the wilderness, and so it's Lent. And so who knew when we started this fast this year that it would be more than French fries, sweets, beer, snacks, but giving up, going out to eat with friends, some people giving up going to work, going to school, giving up seniors in high school and college, giving up graduation, giving up family trips to see our loved ones. Some people are giving up their salaries. Who knew that we would have to give up publicly attending church? Who knew on Ash Wednesday that we would have to give up receiving the body and blood of Christ for a while? And when we received those ashes on our foreheads, who knew that we would watch death rates from coronavirus go up in China, Europe, and now North America? Remember that you are dust, and to dust you shall return. So on a lighter note, some people took on something simple during Lent, right? Cleaning out closets to give stuff to rummage sales or Goodwill, writing one letter a week to someone sick or some estranged family member or friend. In response to coronavirus, people have taken on way more ministry, more service than they ever imagined. So this past week, I brought my dog, Desi, to Grace for exercise. Y'all probably don't know this is her gym when weather is bad. And there were about 10 Grace Church parishioners who took everything out of the food pantry, and it's a large room, and they took everything out of the freezers, and they sterilized absolutely everything. It took 2 days, 5 or 10 hours of work, of volunteer work. At St. Matthew's, 2 people spent hours 6 feet apart, going through organizing years of treasure, secretary papers, and lots of other documents. Who knew one person would have the time to take on painting the entire parish hall and do all sorts of yard work for our church? There's even a rumor, believe it or not, that both the Rector of Grace Church and St. Matthew's will be able to see the tops of their desks before this is all over. For the first time, after preaching this gospel for over 20 years, for the first time, I can actually identify with this blind man. I know what it's like not to see what's going on around me. Maybe some people are right. This coronavirus is not a big deal. It will be over soon. Life back as usual. I hope so. Or maybe others are right. Life will never be the same, even after this is all over. I saw a brief video on Facebook this week
the lead singer from REM, y'all know REM, he was singing just one line from that famous song, "It's the end of the world as we know it." And he was saying, even when this is all over, it's still the end of the world as we know it. It's the unknown, the waiting that's so hard for me. And even when this coronavirus pandemic is over, when the restaurants, the schools, and the churches are open, something is different after this experience that we are all having. What changes, how this affects us, is up to each one of us. I read an article this week titled, "I'm a nun, and I've been social distancing for 29 years. So Sister Mary Catherine Perry writes about being a cloistered nun with 17 other sisters for 29 years. They have 8 acres of land surrounding their convent. She never leaves the convent except for doctor's appointments and shopping. She can go for months without leaving her house. She's very clear that this coronavirus sickness is never good, especially when it's spreading and forcing us to stay home more." Sister Mary also says she can see how this sudden shift in society is frightening, right? It can be really frightening. It's a change. But why not, she says, make the best of it. Make the best of being isolated, really going into the wilderness. We seem to have lost that sense, or I've lost that sense of routine and focus and centeredness. Before the isolation, our routines were way over scheduled, too busy, but this was normal for us, right? This is the way we are, or were. I always thought sooner or later life would come down, but you know what? It never did. Well, now it has for many of us, right? Now it has. When I first heard that Bishop Hollingsworth suspended public church services, I thought it would be a couple weeks. So I enjoyed, for a minute I thought this would be really nice. So for 2 days, I didn't have a schedule. I slept in, and then as the week went on, there was this franticness in the grocery store. There's a franticness, and then outside, there's this eerie quietness. The restaurants began to close, other businesses closed, social distancing 6 feet apart. No more than 10 people in a group. So I slowly got back to a schedule, a rhythm to my daily life. It's harder for me to work from home. And it's a whole lot harder to do all this computer or camera stuff. Again, Sister Mary also said in her article about social distancing, she wrote, "People say they want peace and quiet, and when it's thrown into their lap, they panic. They don't want to be alone. They are afraid to confront their shadow side, the hard truths about themselves that they don't like. So they fill their lives with noise," and she concludes, "Stop. Be still for a while." So you can either waste this period of social distancing, be frustrated and angry, or you can choose to make the best of it that you can. So it's Lent. Many of us have been thrown into the wilderness like never, ever before. Like the blind man, we can't see. So offer this time to God. Offer your blindness to Jesus. Sit still. Listen. What do you need to be washed off in the pool of Siloam? Go wash it off. And then come out of the water, come out and be able to see. Come out and be able to see Jesus, walking with you through this wilderness time. Amen.
Let us continue to stand and affirm our faith in the words of the Nicene Creed. I believe in God,
the Father Almighty,
creator of heaven and earth. I believe in Jesus Christ, his only Son, our Lord. He was conceived by the power of the Holy Spirit and born of the Virgin Mary. He suffered under Pontius Pilate, was crucified, died, and was buried. He descended to the dead. On the third day he rose again. He ascended into heaven and is seated at the right hand of the Father. He will come again to judge the living and the dead. I believe in the Holy Spirit, the Holy Catholic Church, the communion of saints, the forgiveness of sins, the resurrection of the body, and the life everlasting. Amen.
The Lord be with you.
And also with you.
Let us pray. Show us your mercy, O Lord.
And grant us your salvation.
Clothe your ministers with righteousness.
Let your people sing with joy.
Give peace, O Lord, in all the world.
For only in you can we live in safety.
Lord, keep this nation under your care.
And guide us in the way of justice and truth.
Let your way be known upon earth.
Your saving health among all nations.
Let not the needy, O Lord, be forgotten.
Nor the hope of the poor be taken away.
Create in us clean hearts, O God.
And sustain us with your Holy Spirit.
Gracious Father, whose blessed Son, Jesus Christ, came down from heaven to be the true bread which gives life to the world. Evermore give us this bread that he may live in us and we in him, who lives and reigns with you in the Holy Spirit, one God, now and forever. Amen. O God, who make us glad with weekly remembrance of the glorious resurrection of thy Son, our Lord Jesus Christ, give us this day such blessing through our worship of thee, that the week to come may be spent in thy favor, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. O God, the author of peace and lover of concord, to know thee is eternal life, and to serve thee is perfect freedom. Defend us, your humble servants, in all assaults of our enemies, that we, surely trusting in thy defense, may not fear the might of any adversaries, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Almighty and ever-living God, ruler of all things in heaven and earth, hear our prayer for all parish families, and especially for Grace Church, St. Matthew's Church, and St. Mark's Church. Strengthen the faithful, arouse the careless, and restore the penitent. Give us all things necessary for our common life, and bring us all to be of one heart and mind within thy holy church, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Merciful God, we remember before you all who suffer in mind, body, and spirit. Grant to each of them and us the constant awareness of your loving concern and healing power, and restore each of them and us to health and wholeness of life, both now and forevermore. We especially remember all those who are affected with the coronavirus and others who suffer, remembering them aloud or silently. All this we ask through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. O Lord, our Governor, whose glory is in all the world, we commend this nation to thy merciful care, that guided by thy providence we may dwell secure in your peace. Grant to Donald, the President of the United States, and to Mike, the Governor of the state, and to our mayors and to all in authority, wisdom and strength to know and to do thy will. Fill them with the love of truth and righteousness, and make them ever mindful of their calling to serve this people in thy fear. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Please join in a prayer for the living in this day. God,
at the present moment, God, in which Jesus stills the storm and soothes the frantic heart, bring hope and courage to us as we wait in uncertainty. Bring hope that you will make us the equal of whatever lies ahead. Bring us courage to endure and not be avoided. For your will is health and wholeness. You are God, and we need you. Amen.
Let us continue with the general thanksgiving.
Almighty God, Father of all mercies, we, your unworthy servants, give you humble thanks for all your goodness and loving kindness to us and to all whom you have made. We bless you for our creation, preservation, and all the blessings of this life, but above all through your immeasurable love, in the redemption of the world by our Lord Jesus Christ, for the means of grace and for the hope of glory. And we pray, give us such an awareness of your mercies, that with truly thankful hearts we may show forth your praise, not only with our lips, but in our lives, by giving up ourselves to your service, and by walking before you in holiness and righteousness all our days. Through Jesus Christ our Lord, who with you in the Holy Spirit be honor and glory throughout all ages. Amen.
Almighty God, you've given us grace this time with one accord
To make our common supplication to you, and you have promised through your well-beloved Son, that when 2 or 3 are gathered together in his name, you will be in the midst of them. Fulfill now, O Lord, our desires and petitions, as may be best for us, granting us in this world knowledge of your truth, and in the ages to come, life everlasting. Amen.
The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, and the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us all evermore. Amen. Go in peace to love and serve the Lord. Thanks be to God.